Hello Tongalers, welcome to lesson 1 of our 4-part Pitching to Brands educational series. I'm your trusty Tongal host, Mitchell Block, and I'll be helping you unravel the mystical secrets behind creating pitches that brands are going to love. Okay, maybe they're more practical and time-tested techniques, but nonetheless, you're going to learn a lot. And by the end of this series, you'll be able to craft a highly competitive pitch on Tongal. In this module, we'll focus on reading, understanding, and ultimately responding to a creative brief. For every project, there's a brief which contains everything you need to know about what the brand is looking for and what they hope to achieve with the final creative. If you haven't read a creative brief before, that's okay. We have plenty of examples on Tongal right now. Just visit our open projects page and check out what's live. Today, we'll be taking a look at a real-life brief from PayPal. First, let's dig into the anatomy of a brief. You have the timeline. And it's important for you to familiarize yourself with the project's deadlines. Getting your pitch submitted in time is just as important as delivering assets. On Tongal, all submissions are due at 12 p.m. Pacific time, unless otherwise stated in the project brief. In this project's timeline, you can see that the development, pre-production, video, and revision stages with their accompanying dates are expected to move very quickly. Next up, the synopsis. Think of the synopsis as the project's logline, summarizing the creative ask along with the scope of deliverables. Here, PayPal is asking for a suite of social videos that highlights their new pay-in-3 payment solution in an impactful way. So right off the bat, you know that your pitch will need to focus on the benefits of this new offering. A suite, in this instance, is a collection of videos that uses similar assets, but each video is edited and creatively optimized for their intended social channel. We'll dig into this more in a bit. The objectives section contains everything you need to know about the brand's goals and, well, their objectives. Whether that's to raise awareness about a new product or service, evoke a direct response, or increase subscribers. Make sure your creative concept clearly addresses the brand's goals, takes into consideration the tone, audience, and where the content will ultimately end up. As you'll see, this project has quite a few deliverables on it. 18 total assets with different aspect ratios and lengths. Brands will typically ask for a broad category of formats depending on their distribution strategy. This project has social exposure, so it's safe to assume they're covering multiple ends of the platform spectrum here. 4x5, 1x1, and 9x16. How cool is that? PayPal has touched a bit on what they expect out of each format, how and if they expect content to be reused, and what they hope to achieve for each channel. Some videos will need to lean on different messaging. With something as multi-platform and multi-dimensional as this, make sure your pitch clearly addresses how you plan to optimize the content for each platform, both in terms of narrative structure and visual approach. Tongal provides you with easy up-to-date social video best practice cheat sheets on our Tongal 101 page. Get familiar with what works for each platform and show off your expertise in your pitch. Here you will find where the brand plans on distributing your work. You can see that PayPal has an interest in the UK market with intent on utilizing Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram, and TikTok. This ties back into the deliverables section and gives us a little insight into why they were asking for those particular ratios. By this point, you've already got a creative direction in mind, and you have a video in your head that even your stuck-up cousin Jacob would love. And that brings us to our target audience. Is Jacob a parent? Are they under 30? Digitally savvy? Of course not. Jacob's the worst. With that in mind, it's safe to say in this situation it might not be a good thing if your current idea is something Jacob would like. It's important to keep the brand's target audience in mind so you can structure your idea around the demographic that it will be marketed toward. That includes whether or not they have kids. Kids change everything, including what demographic you fall in or how much free time you have. But I digress. Speaking of awkward silences, you just might get one if your pitch has the wrong tone. If you see this, and you submit this, you might be hurting your chances. Taking a look, we can see that PayPal wants to maintain a simple, bold, brave, dynamic, empowering, impactful, and exciting tone. See, I'm already feeling the vibe. Just the vibe. They didn't pull out that thesaurus for nothing. Looking at the brand's past work, especially if they've included any in the brief, and pursuing their various digital channels will also give you a strong sense of the brand's tone of voice. Be sure to pay attention to what the brand is asking for in the brief. If they want to try their hand at a bell pepper and move away from their old potato way of doing things and help them get there with your pitch. Further down, you'll notice a section called Executional Mandatories. Sounds important, right? That's because they are very, very important. Think of these as the must-haves, the deal breakers, the sauce. We recommend treating this section as a checklist to go through before hitting the submit button. If you take a look at the executional mandatories in this brief, you can see that you're required to keep in mind some key details as you're drafting your pitch. PayPal wants your creative to reflect the power to live your life your way sentiment. Does your creative do that? PayPal also has some very specific phrases and tropes they'd like you to avoid. Going back to the objectives, you can reacquaint yourself with the app's purpose to better understand how to tie the mandatories into the deliverables. Every section is an ingredient, and they all work together for the recipe. You must consider all material listed and dedicate equal consideration toward incorporation. Some projects will be open bid, meaning you get to set the overall budget. This gives you room to make some important creative choices up front. You can aim high with a larger budget for a big production, or think of ways to execute your production at a lower cost. When pitching on open bid projects, you'll be asked to submit a budget as well as a full breakdown. Be sure to use our budget template when pitching to open bid projects. It's important for the client to be able to understand the correlation between your budget proposal and what the final videos will look like. If we take a closer look at this brief, we can see that PayPal has offered up to $32,000 for the full suite of videos. Sometimes a brand will ask for a budget proposal so they have a better idea of how a project will be funded. But in this case, they're only interested in your bid. Be sure to look out for a budget range in the project brief. This is a helpful guideline for the range you should be aiming for. Once your bid has been accepted, you will work with one of our producers to work out a milestone payment schedule. In this section, you'll find important information that may not necessarily have found a home in the other categories. It's worth noting, however, that doesn't make this information any less important. It may include more information about the brand, why they're keen on developing this project, along with video references and thought starters to fire up your creative engines. Pay special attention to any video references included in this section. These provide insight into the creative direction the brand is going for and the style of videos they'd like to replicate. You know how some submissions have certain requirements? This is a great example of that phenomenon. Diving into this section will further elaborate on what the brand expects from you in a clear and concise way. Some items will be optional and others required. If there's anything that can help you stand out from the crowd, like if you're able to submit a pitch video, for example, we highly recommend that you take advantage of it. Here, you will see all the production requirements. The pre-production requirements for this project list that you will need a script, headshot, location, and wardrobe approval from the brand before filming. This means you can't recruit your cousin Teddy to put on his best flannel and record a segment at your local Denny's. I mean, I love pancakes too, but you gotta check with the brand on these things first, no matter how fancy that flannel is. You will also see in this section if there are any special revision requirements, how you need to deliver assets, and the current music partners you can source your music from for free on this particular project. Tongal has a number of music and sound effects partners that you can use for free, so you don't have to go out of pocket for catching a music score or for licensing sound effects, because you do have to. Rules. If you're confused about what you should or shouldn't do, it's best to check here. Now that you've read the brief, we recommend at least twice. It's off to the races with your brilliant creative approach. This concludes our high-octane analysis of reading a project brief. We look forward to seeing you in the next part of our series, Curating Your Past Work.